Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second installment of Variant 6 Talks. We're really excited to see all of you. And I'm Steve Bradshaw. I sing tenor in the group. Variant 6 is a six-voice vocal ensemble specializing in commissioning new works, new music, and also a focus in early music, which we're going to be zeroing in on a little bit in this particular episode. The reason I'm not just assuming you know who we are is because we are lucky enough to be inheriting some of the fans of Piffaro, the Renaissance band. They are our guests tonight, and they are old friends of ours and colleagues of ours. And many of us have a very storied history with them. Many of us have done so many projects with them throughout the year. They're kind of a local institution here in Philadelphia. They're a legendary Philadelphia-based ensemble that specializes in Renaissance music, Renaissance instruments, Renaissance tuning, and is really hyper-focused in a certain hemisphere of the repertoire. And we're going to be talking about their work, our work, and the work we have coming up together. Over the years, we've done work with Choral Arts Philly, Bach Collegium of Philadelphia, and also the many performances and our commercial recording of Kile Smith Vespers with The Crossing, which brings me to our other guest this evening, a beloved composer and renowned composer based in Philadelphia, Mr. Kile Smith. And we are beyond excited to have him here. He's a close friend and just a really astonishing artist. And his Vespers that a lot of us have been fortunate enough to perform in or be familiar with musically, actually was a big project that we did with Piffaro early on, and it's kind of become a Philly classic. And his another more recent full evening length piece called The Ark in the Sky is just an absolute astonishing feat piece of work, and that actually brought The Crossing a Grammy nomination last year. I implore you to go absorb those two pieces as soon as possible. You'll thank me later. I can honestly say that Kile is one of my favorite artists. I can honestly say that he's one of my favorite artists, and it's cool to have Piffaro and Kile here together because Kyle's artistry, beginning with the Vespers performance, was kind of a watershed experience for me. There's a character and a space in his music that's kind of impossible to articulate, so I won't exactly try, but there's a love in it and a point of view that comes directly from him. And this is a little bit of a tangent, but when I was younger, when artists would release music that I was interested in, I would know months in advance. I couldn't wait for that thing to come out. There would be all this anticipation for it, and I might even go to Tower Records the night before, hoping to get the record like the second it's past midnight or something. And now we live in this world where we're so inundated with material, we're so inundated with content that the artists that you admire, you're like, oh, they put out a record 2 weeks ago. Wow, I need to go check that out eventually, go back in time. And the only kind of experience that gives me that old jolt is when a score comes in the mail or in my inbox, and it's from an artist that we really admire, like Kile. And the people that write this music for us that we all get to work on together, these are my heroes and heroines. So it really is that special for us. And since our entire project and performance schedule was postponed due to global circumstances of the COVID variety, I was unfortunate enough to become one of the anointed earlier this year, and it was not pleasant. And so just love to anybody that's currently going through that or has a loved one that's going through that. It's a terrible thing, but we're hoping everybody's healthy. But we, as a result of that, we have a backed up catalog of new creativity for you, new music for you, new compositions for you, new performances of old music, and just all of this stuff of just a virtual fire hose of creativity that we're going to share with you as soon as we possibly can. And we're really excited about that. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to ask Ellie to talk about our upcoming, some of those projects coming up. And one is with Illuminarts in Miami. Ellie?
Sure. Yeah. One of the performances that got postponed to next season is our collaboration with Illuminarts. They're a Miami-based presenter, um, run by a very good friend of ours, Amanda Kreider. And that collaboration includes 6 commissions for Variant 6, which is really exciting. It's our biggest commissioning project. We have David Shapiro, which is another Philadelphia friend of ours, Sean Crouch, who's based in Miami, Elliot Cole, Jenny Olivia Johnson, Carla Kielstedt, and Evelyn Separ. We already have some of these scores, and like Steve was evoking earlier, the joy of getting a new score in your inbox is just, it's unmatched by anything. It's so exciting. So we're really, really excited about all these pieces and presenting them next season. So that's one thing coming up.
Awesome. Yeah, that's going to be amazing to share all that new music with you. And then James, why don't you tell us about the project that kind of brings us all here today? Piffaro, Kile Smith, brand new piece for Variant 6 and Piffaro. Tell us about it.
Yeah. Speaking of the excitement of getting a new score in the mail, I think that it might have been the only time that I've ever received a score via a Facebook group message about, last winter, I got a notification on my phone that said, Kile Smith sent your group a Facebook message. And I was like, what? Kile Smith? Kyle Smith sent me a Facebook message. That's amazing. Open it up. It's a beautiful score for Variant 6 and Piffaro, which is the reason we're all here tonight. This program that was originally scheduled for May of 2020, that was unfortunately canceled, but we can now say that, pending good circumstances, we will perform this program in the fall of this year, which is something that we are just so tremendously excited about. The program, it's an evening length program where Variant 6 will perform by ourselves. Piffaro will perform by themselves. And if you've never heard Piffaro perform, it is one of the great musical gifts that you can encounter in Philadelphia. And then the evening will culminate with the world premiere of a new work for both of our organizations by Kyle. It's a setting of Ave Maris Stella. I wish we could play you. I just wish you could hear it because looking at the score it's going to be a glorious, glorious return to performing this fall. We are so excited for you to hear the score. It's an incredibly beautiful piece. And, in looking forward to it, we just couldn't be more grateful or happy that Bob and Joan and Kyle are with us tonight.
Amen. God willing, I'm so excited for that glorious return that you speak of. It's kind of this eerie feeling because we all got so used to the disappointment of seeing the Tower of Cards crumble, and now we're all kind of building it up piece by piece. There's this weird thing of people are already starting to plan, the coming out of the rubble and actually making a return to singing. So we're all pretty psyched about that. I did this a little out of order. I was going to have James talk last, but I do want to talk about also the fact that later on this year, we're going to be releasing our first commercial recording, which is a piece by Greg Brown called Fall and Decline on Navona Records. We are releasing a vinyl record. It's going to be a beautiful object, and we're really excited. Greg and I are collaborating on the artwork together, and it's a chamber piece for 6 singers and electronics. And before you project your expectations onto that, it's also very vocal. It's very beautiful. It's very human. It has it all because Greg has it all. So we're excited for you to check that out when that comes out. We're really looking forward to that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to transition over. We're going to invite Kyle to come speak with us. And I'm going to kind of fade into the background here and just chime in when I feel like it. I'm going to let Ellie talk to Kyle.
Here I am.
There he is.
Thank you, Stephen. That was an amazing introduction. I'm very, very humbled by that. Thanks for your very kind words.
You're quite welcome. Thank you, sir.
The first thing we're going to do is listen to some music.
Ooh.
might all be- So that was a all too brief excerpt from Why Did They All Shout? From Kyle's full-length piece, The Ark in the Sky, performed by The Crossing. Kyle, in case you can't tell, all the members of this ensemble love singing your music. All of us have been lucky enough to perform a bunch of your music with a variety of ensembles across the country. But Variant 6 has never performed a piece of yours, usually because you write for more than just 6 voices, to fantastic effect. But that's one of the reasons why we're so excited for our collaboration in October with Piffaro, because we finally get to sing your music as this ensemble. The first question I wanted to ask you was, why vocal music? I mean, you have this amazing body of work, all centered on the voice, and obviously we're so lucky that you chose to do that, but I'm just wondering, what about the voice makes you want to write for it?
Well, I suppose I could get very philosophical and say something about the voice being the original instrument, and but really it's because that I've sung in choirs my whole life, and it comes very naturally to me. Now, I'm not a professional singer. I'm an amateur chorister, you might say. And so it comes very naturally to me. I think of, if you will excuse the parallel, because I'm not putting myself on the level of Richard Strauss, but I think of Strauss. His father, Franz Strauss, was a horn player, but was also a conductor, and he conducted a community orchestra. So little Richard Strauss grew up playing violin in his father's community orchestra. And I think what a wonderful education that was, to become the great orchestrator and composer that Strauss became. And I think of that with my own works as, singing. I sang in a little kids choir in church, and then in school, and then all on up. And I still sing in choirs now, a lot, all amateur singing. And I just started to write for the groups that I was in, starting in college and so forth. And I think I have a really good understanding of what works for the voice. And I can look at a piece of music and my throat can tighten when I see something. It's just, you just have a nose for that kind of thing.
That's
And
that's
so
like that's the characteristic of I think of a good composer for the voice, is if they're kind of singing the piece as they're writing it.
Absolutely.
You can see them like trying out melodies, humming them under their breath, and kind of that when they're at their work table. The people that are just doing it on finale and not connected to the human mechanism of it can sometimes falter.
yeah, I don't want to get too far afield or too deep into the weeds, but it's very, very important to me to write for actual people. And it's not just with voices, but with instruments too. And we'll talk about this with Piffaro, but with the actual character of the voices, I don't think of the music as being a set of notes on a page. I think of music as being communication between people, and whether the person is singing or is playing some instrument, it's still people communicating with each other. And so that's why it's very important to me to really grasp the character of the instrument, whether it's the voice or whether it's a tenor shawm, or whether it's a trombone or a violin, or an organ or an orchestra. It's that character, and all of that is wrapped up. Sometimes you get the feeling with some music, it doesn't matter what would be playing, you can just plug anything in, but I don't, my mind doesn't think that way.
Yeah.
So Steve and Jess, from the other side of the page, what about Kyle's music makes it so easy to sing?
Well, what Kyle was just talking about how he thinks about music being like, the idea, not just notes on a page, kind of mirrors my experience of it, because, and Kyle and I have talked about process and creativity a lot, bar side, over the years. And he will sometimes say that, like, if he's frustrated with a piece of music that he's heard, he'll say like, oh, I didn't meet him through his piece. And I feel like with Kyle's music, you'd meet him somewhere within the piece, because he is communicating through the music. And and I think it's one of the reasons it succeeds so much. It's kind of funny that he brought that up, because I kind of touched on it in my opening talk. It's that you meet the composer through the work. And I feel that Kyle's music is personal that way and exists in a space all its own.
Yeah. And I think Kyle's music has a wide variety of range and color. Like if you look at The Ark in the Sky, there's just so many different textures and colors throughout the entire piece. And you can tell he is really familiar with the voice and has all aspects of the voice in mind when he writes his music. I was thinking about it the other day. I think there's only 2 times in my entire career where I've ever wanted to be an alto or a mezzo. I love being a soprano, but time number 1 is the B minor mass, Bach's B minor mass, the Agnus Dei. Oh my gosh, I would trade in my voice just to be able to sing that, because it's just so gorgeous. And the other time is in The Ark in the Sky, the second movement, There Are Not Many Songs. Ooh, that movement is my favorite. It's so velvety, it's warm. I'm jealous I don't get to sing it, but I also understand why he wrote it for the altos, because it's so rich and it's just so beautiful. And he just has such an adaptation, a really clear understanding of what exactly he wants when he writes something. And that's why I love singing his music.
Thank you for saying that. I've often thought that my goal in life is to make the altos happy. If I can do that, then I think I've succeeded as a composer. But I mean, the bigger picture is that every voice should feel that what they're singing is the most important thing, that they're not just there marking time. So I try to keep that in front of my mind all the time. Thank you for that. That's very sweet.
I think that's definitely true, Kyle. I mean, at sopranos, altos, tenors, basses, we all love singing your music, and it's because you give each voice like a beautiful, special thing to do that fits really well in their voices.
Yes.
You're not asking. You ask a lot out of your singers, but you don't ask the impossible. Everything fits idiosyncratically into the voices that you're writing for, which is,
well, it's a strange, for many, many years, the only singers I wrote for were amateurs, small choirs, community choirs, small church choirs that were amateurs, no professional singers. And so I'm used to writing, I'm used to having to answer the question, how can this work? How can this work out of the box with the singers that you have? And what I found with professionals like you guys, I mean, just top of the art world singers like you, is that actually the question doesn't change. It's just different singers, and you can do so many things. And so I want to give you something that is worthy of you, so that you can express yourself and you can be the complete musicians that you already are and that you've trained to be. So whether it's for amateurs or for the professionals who could just do so many things so gloriously, it's to completely fulfill what they do. You know, the time that you put in to perfect your art, I want to honor that.
Oh,
That is
Well,
such
thank
a fantastic thought, Kyle.
yeah.
So like, oh, I'm using I'm filling my capacity of singing. So that's such a great way to think about it.
Yeah.
We've only got a couple minutes left in this segment, but Kyle, we really wanted to ask you about how you select texts and how you think about setting texts. I mean, just of your music, I've sung poetry, I've sung transcriptions of astronauts, I've sung. Of course, you set a very well-known religious text for this upcoming commission, the Ave Maria Stella.
Yeah, well, it's easiest when someone picks the text for me. I get into a lot of trouble when it's left up to me, because I take a really, really long time. The Ark in the Sky took a really long time. Robert Lax is an amazing poet that I was just introduced to, and my wife told me about him, and she said you gotta check this guy out, and I read him, and I was blown away by his poetry. So then the problem became, narrowing it down.
Yeah.
But
Can I ask you a question? Because that's
yeah.
actually surprising to me. So is it true that you came to Robert Lax on your own
Yeah.
for the Ark in the Sky? Oh,
Yeah.
I always thought that was Donald.
No, Donald and I had been talking about this project, but we didn't really come up with something, and we had ideas that we threw back and forth at each other. And then when I came to Robert Lax, and I sent him a number of texts. It wasn't the final 9 texts, but he really liked it, and so then I went with it. And talking with Bob and Joan of Piffaro, and they had the idea of the Ave Maris Stella, and I knew of the poem, and I went back and looked at it, and I immediately fell in love with it.
Yeah.
So that was not a problem at all. So that's the best.
Yeah.
When someone else does that work.
Takes the pressure
And I
off.
love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, Kyle, we'll talk to you later
Okay.
in conjunction with Piffaro, but I'm going to pass it off to Jimmy, who will introduce our other guests for the evening.
All right, thanks, Ellie. Well, I have the wonderful pleasure and honor of introducing Joan Kimball and Bob Wiemken of Piffaro, the Renaissance Band. And for much of our audience tonight, this is a funny thing, because they may not know that we are about as close to having this conversation in person as humanly possible, without actually having it in person, because Joan happens to be my landlord, and I live right next door to her, and I have the pleasure of living above the Piffaro office. And so every day in the afternoon, I have the delight of hearing a shawm or a dulcian come wafting through my walls.
Or if you're lucky, a bagpipe.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. And so anyway, so Bob and Joan, I see you all the time, but it's so great to get to talk to you this way. And I just first want to ask you, how you're both doing, and I also want to ask if my singing ever, just drives you crazy through the walls.
Never. And listen to me, if it did, all I would need to do is to pick up a shawm and aim the bell right at the wall, which is a very thin wall between my studio and your living room. And maybe, that would be a little, but you know what? I'm so glad that we're said to be mutually appreciative of our music, so that I love hearing your singing. And I loved it early in the pandemic when you and Natalie were practicing brass instruments together. And I'm hoping that our shawms and dulcians and bagpipes, and when we make reeds and make noises, it doesn't bother you too much. So, but we're very happy that you are living over there and are very close.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Friends.
Oh man. Well, I was trying to put the memory of picking up my trombone for the first time in 10 years out of my head. So thank you for reminding me.
We all were. Yeah.
So, it's great to have you both with us. Variant 6, we love Piffaro so much. We have obviously admired both of you and the organization for so long, but, your group might be new to a number of people in our audience. So I thought, first, by way of introduction, it might be great just to listen to a clip of you playing, because you really have a signature sound as an ensemble. And so you sent over some wonderful clips. So I think the first one that would be really great to play is this Allemande from William Brade. I'm going to put on my German accent for a second. This is from the Neue Auserlesene Lieblichen Branden. And it's from a show. It's from a show you did last year, and I love this clip. So let's take a listen. I think that clip is so awesome. I could listen to Piffaro play all day. I was at that show. I think I was actually at the show where that was recorded. And I remember just like bopping in my seat. It's so great. I love the way that Piffaro plays together. And it really is like a signature sound that you all have developed together over the past 40 years as an ensemble. And it is an illustrious 4 decades that you have built together. And so for the people in our audience, Bob and Joan, I wonder if you might just give us, like, do the impossible and kind of give us the flash in the pan points of the last 40 years and tell us a little bit about what Piffaro does and how you kind of came to be the ensemble you are today.
Well, I'll start off. It was very, we were 5 of us, 5 wind players, were a member of the Collegium Musicum, members of the Collegium Musicum at Penn, directed by Marianne Ballard. And we played with all our instruments, and we played with singers and the strings. But this coterie of wind players, we decided we wanted to break off on our own. And for the first 4 or 5 years, our specialty was playing and developing the early Renaissance reeds, double reeds, the Chaume and the Dulcian, which were not really taken very seriously at that point in the whole early music world. The strings and the voices and other instruments were probably more important. But that was our mission, and we really worked hard at that, figuring out how to make these instruments work, how to make reeds for them, developing repertoire. And so that's sort of what we started off about the first 5, 6, 7 years. We added in other instruments, to be sure, but that was sort of the focus of our work at that time period. We didn't do too much. We would do occasional concerts in the early years. In 1985, we became incorporated and then started a concert series, which is the concert series that we still have today in the Philadelphia area.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then right after that, well, of course, like every young ensemble, we experienced personnel changes. And consequently, it was I think that the first 15 years can be summarized under 3 Ps: perseverance, personnel, and programming. Those first 15 years was just learning what we needed to do, putting together the ensemble, trying out people coming and going. And it wasn't until about 1989 that we actually began. Joan and I were the last 2 standing at that point, and that's when we became the artistic directors and decided we were going to put together the ensemble with the best people we could find, and announced beyond the Philadelphia borders, and began to attract some extremely wonderful talent. that helped us to launch the ensemble in the early 90s. And there was also a good bit of call it luck, call it being in the right place at the right time. We recorded a project that got a little bit of distribution, was heard by the people who ran the Taga Alte Musik Festival in Regensburg, Germany, performed there in 1993, I believe it was, Joan, and for the first European trip. And while there, we were heard by the head of Archiv production of Deutsche Grammophon, who signed us on the spot. And we then began, and that really began the main thrust of the ensemble. And it was learning, who we were, what the repertoire required, and also, as Joan said, expanding the instruments. We were the loud band of reeds and brass. And early on, we decided we needed a really good set of recorders as well. And we found that and added that to the ensemble in the mid-90s.
I mean, it's you know, Joan mentioned you know, a number of the instruments that are in sort of your realm of expertise, and it, you know, if you go to a Piffaro show, it's amazing to watch because, you know, you basically you all like chuck instruments to one another and you say like, oh catch, like I'll play this one, and you can all play everything so beautifully.
There's got to be choreography involved,
right? Oh,
right?
I know.
Yeah.
You got to
Well, you know,
left hand sham, right hand. You know.
Yeah, and you know, and the range of colors that you have available to you as an ensemble. I mean, Bob, you just mentioned that you were the loud band, and that you also needed some recorders. And so, you know, for people who know Variant 6 but might not know Piffaro, I mean, the juxtaposition of these two types of ensembles is pretty extraordinary. And so the first clip we played was a loud band clip. I mean, it's, you know, it's really boisterous sounding, really, really exciting sounding. And then you also have the recorder ensemble, which is this like very like lush and soft and intimate sound. And so we also have another clip of music by John Coperario. And so why don't we listen to that right now, because that really shows the juxtaposition. So it's just beautiful to listen to that. And, you know, when you listen to Kyle talk about, you know, using different colors and knowing the instrument that he's writing for, I feel like as a composer, you know, let alone the centuries of repertoire that you all perform on a regular basis, but as a composer, it must just be so just like invigorating for him to know that he has all those palettes available to him. And so, you know, Bob and Joan, you obviously have like an illustrious history as an organization. Philadelphia is so lucky to have you. You are like Philadelphian institutions at this point. And for a young ensemble like Variant 6, like us, you know, your organization is one that we very much look up to, like not only as a model of like longevity and success, but also like because of your artistry. And for all those reasons, we're so excited to collaborate with you. It's been a long time coming, and we're just super excited about it. But another reason we're excited to collaborate with you is that we have all these personal connections with you as well.
That's true.
We essentially live together. That's one. But if you look closely, there are all these connections between our ensemble and yours. And so, Dan, this is where you come in. I wonder if you might speak a little bit about your personal history with Bob and Joan. And specifically like some of the lessons that they taught you about the importance of encountering and engaging with like all sorts of music.
Yeah, sure. I guess I win the award of knowing them the longest. Can you guys believe that it's been almost 15 years since I met you in that class at Temple? It's unbelievable. So yeah, I decided to take an early music class with Bob when I was a percussion major at Temple, and I wanted to be in the recorder quartet. I was a lover of Renaissance music, and I knew how to play the recorder, but my styling was way off. I remember my audition with Bob. I played something akin to the Lord of the Rings theme, if you think like James Galway on Tin Whistle, like with wild vibrato. And Bob was like, okay, well, at least he knows the fingerings.
Yeah, right.
And the rest is history. And I learned how to actually play in the Renaissance style. And interestingly, I got a lot of flack from my fellow percussionists. They were saying things like, why are you wasting your time with recorder ensemble when you could be practicing Porgy and Bess excerpts on xylophone for the 1,000th time? And I was also taking voice lessons at the time. And what they didn't realize was that my singing informed my recorder playing. My recorder playing informed my marimba playing, and vice versa, and all the different types of phrasing and style transfers over. And I think it's really made me into the musician I am today to have all those different things. In fact, that ensemble was the first time I heard a tuning system other than equal temperament mentioned. I remember Bob uttering the phrase quarter comma mean tone and thinking, what the hell is that
going on? Yeah.
But yeah, I think that class was really where I learned how to tune with others, and that's the biggest part of what I do today, in this ensemble. So
well, I think that's one thing, and Kyle mentioned this before. He talked about how in this chamber music situation that we all share, it's this conversation we have going on together. It's tuning together, it's phrasing together, it's talking together, it's working together, and that has been one of the special things for me and for all of the work that we've done. And we have had that advantage, as Jimmy was saying. We've had that advantage of having so many different colors to offer in the program. And when I mentioned the 3 Ps, programming has been one of the things that has helped our reputation in the city. Not only liking what we played, but the fact that one minute you're hearing a loud band of shawms and sackbuts, and the next minute you're hearing recorders, and the next minute you're hearing bagpipes and guitar and percussion. And there's that advantage that we have within the context of our rather large instrumentarium that we built up over the past 40 years. So.
Bob also taught me how to play percussion, even when I was like studying with Philadelphia Orchestra members as a percussionist, and Bob showed me the tambourine, and I was like, oh, I know how to play tambourine. He's like, not like this, you don't.
Yes, we have modeled ourselves on the instrumentalists of the day, and those folks, mostly guys, of course, back then. Had to play a lot of different instruments, and that's been kind of the trademark of what we've been doing.
Yeah, well, I'm wary of time here, and Bob and Joan, we will catch up with you later, and maybe later I would also love to hear about how vocal technique informs your playing in Piffaro, because I know that is something that Kyle is very aware of when he writes pieces for both you and for singers. But for now, I'm going to invite the rest of Variant 6 back and say, Bob and Joan, we will catch up with you later, but thank you so much for being here with us. And now, Rebecca, I'm going to hand it off to you, and we're going to have a little chat about Variant 6's own encounters with early music, which have been many and fruitful.
Bye.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so I wanted to just, I guess, start off this discussion with a musical clip. And this is a real treat for any Variant 6 fans who are watching, because this is a recording from that we did the day after our very first concert, which was January 5th, 2016. And in our first concert, we decided to program, perhaps madly, some of the Victoria Requiem, which was a favorite of many of us. And so you're going to hear just a little short clip of that, and just asking you to listen to, maybe if you know our sound, like how the sound has changed, and if you hear any aspects of us as a very young ensemble. So this is an excerpt from the Victoria Requiem from our first concert. Thank you. We hope you enjoyed hearing that, and it certainly brings back a lot of very fond memories from our first concert in our dear friend Vera Farkas, my landlord, his wonderful sculpture gallery. All of our
Variant 6
landlords.
we rely on our landlords for anything. Like,
But I mean, truly, like Philadelphia, it's like, that's what's so amazing about sometimes our community, is that it is kind of like a huge family. Anyway, I wanted to ask Ellie to talk a little bit about programming our first concert, and if you have any memories about why we programmed the Victoria Requiem.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first meeting we had as a group, we all like sat down in a coffee shop and we're just brainstorming repertoire that we would want to do. And the Victoria Requiem was one of the first things that came up. It's 6 voices. Depending on what key you do it in, it fits SSATTB, which is not always so easy to find in early music. So we, for our very first concert, we were like, oh my gosh, we're going to do it. Let's do the whole thing. And then we realized that all of the Victoria Requiem is pretty long, and we wanted to maybe do some early music or some new music on there as well. So instead we did, I feel like 5 or 6 movements of the Requiem, and then sort of interspersed contemporary pieces as well as other early pieces that sort of had to do with the theme of a Requiem.
Yeah, that was such a great first program. I remember like
like-
really loving every single piece we did on that. So
Yeah, it's hard to like listen to anything like a live performance from that long ago and a dry acoustic and anything other than like a defensive crouch. But
Yeah.
it's like
so I actually wanted to ask Dan to talk about that a little bit. Dan, what about that first performance? Any memories? Anything stick out?
Yes. One that really sticks out. It's a little frightening, but yeah, I have a little anecdote about that night. As you said, we were performing in this small art gallery, our first performance. And I remember when we programmed it, we knew we weren't singing in a super resonant space. And the piece is long and it's full of long legato lines and meant to be sung in like a large boomy cathedral. But we were like, we're all pro singers. It'll be fine. And then once 60 people entered that art gallery, any reverb that was there just totally disappeared. And if you've ever sung in a really dry space, you know you have to put a lot more air through the sound. So between that and all of our nerves, I remember just gasping for breath every measure. Like, really, we sing one measure and then it was pretty terrifying. And
it's easy to run out of spunk right in the middle of a long phrase.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
And in retrospect, maybe not the smartest piece to sing in that space, but we learned.
Well, we weren't necessarily expecting, I think, a big audience. I think we were like, oh, we'll probably get like 20 people. And then we were all kind of like shocked that
It was packed. It was packed. And I had a sweater on, so I was hot.
We didn't have enough cheese.
He had a sweater on and a jacket over it, which if you know us well, anyway. I hope everyone listening enjoyed hearing that. You know, that's never going to be released or anything, but it's in the vault. So this
you're only going to hear it here, folks.
Yeah. One of the things that then stands out to me as we enter, another thing I want to talk about is how our ensemble has progressed. So from that first concert going to, you know, just the six of us wondering, will anyone show up to this? You know, how many boxes of wine should we purchase? You know, and then having 60, 70 people there, to a few years later, performing and organizing a performance of a full Messiah with a Baroque orchestra, hiring 6 other singers to join us for that, and just how far we really came from the very beginning to just a couple years later in 2018. So our next clip that we're going to hear is from a little piece called The Handel Messiah. You may have heard of it. And I did not choose a Hallelujah chorus to listen to, but one of my favorite choruses, and a chorus that singers love to sing, All We Like Sheep. So now you're going to hear our rendition of that movement from Messiah.
Like the growth that we've had as an ensemble, and I remember back during our first performance ever, like preparing that Victoria Requiem, it just took so long to prepare it because every single decision that had to get made, we would go like, all right, Steve, what do you think? How about you, Jess?
Well, yeah.
And then, you know, by the time we got to the Messiah, we really streamlined our ability to make decisions as an ensemble together, which for a piece like Messiah is critical, because you normally have, it's a 3-hour piece, and you normally have a conductor who, tells you like, take the 8th note off here, do this articulation, put a trill here. But in an ensemble like ours, where every decision has to be made by committee, essentially, it's really important that we had a really strong basis of communication for doing so. And so I remember we went, this was during our residency that we had a few years ago at Swarthmore College. And I grew up not far from Swarthmore College. And so after our residency, we went over to my parents' house, and they had built a nice big fire for us in the fireplace. And we all sat around the fire for a number of hours, and we went through the entire Messiah score cover to cover, and we decided on every single thing. And some of them were easy, and some of them had called for spirited debate.
They got
because,
really bogged down.
When you really get into it, what really should you do about the double dot in Behold the Lamb of God? And if you're wondering, we all have very strong opinions about it.
What's funny about it is we all have like all these different experiences of doing it with all these different groups, and everybody wants to put their spin on it. And so we have all of these different varied experiences. And I remember going in thinking like, oh, I'm gonna purposely not care about this. And then you were like, what about this? I'm like, there's no way you're gonna do that. Renders the whole thing meaningless.
I know. But it really was, I feel like, indicative of our growth as a group, because we went in there with the mission of, we are going to come out with a decision for every single thing that calls for a decision in this score, and we did it. And I think that was like a real watershed moment for us of like, that was really our Messiah. And so I'm really glad that we had that. Yeah.
I know we're a little short on time here, so let's just try and wrap it up relatively quickly. But Steve, just a few words, if you would, about our other singer collaborators who we invited to be with us, and solo work that we were all able to do.
It really changes the whole nature of it to be able to invite in these other people in kind of our national community of professional singers. We have people that are, from other cities and stuff like that. And we had a different structure for this project where we needed 12 singers, and we brought them all in, and we really did kind of go one by one, and we selected these people that we just admire like crazy. I mean, they are people that possess superpowers, and not only did they come in and we created this kind of mega choir that was just this incredible sounding thing, but each one of them was able to come out and deliver the Messiah aria that they were born to perform. And so everybody just came out there, and it was just mic drop after mic drop. I mean, it was
pretty awesome,
pretty thrilling experience to see.
Yeah,
just one. It was like home run derby, just one after the other.
Well, we do have high hopes of maybe one day having a Messiah recording that people can purchase from this performance. We'll see.
Don't bring it up.
And
stay tuned, everybody.
And then last but not least, Jessica Beebe. She probably has sung the most Messiahs of anyone in our ensemble, I'm going to guess.
Man.
And I just wanted to ask you to talk about your relationship with Messiah, and like, why was ours special, if it was to you?
Can we have a drum roll here?
Why was ours the best of any of them?
Well, I have performed a lot of Messiahs. I don't know why, but I just have. It's just something I kind of have been doing. I think I started in 2009 was my first real Messiah all the way through. And all the choir nerds out there will understand. I have my trusty novello, and in here I have a list of every Messiah I've ever done.
That. Wow.
Right here, and how many times I've done it. And I counted the other day, and in total there are 54 performances of Messiah.
What?
That's crazy.
That's way more than I thought.
Don't know why.
Say like 14.
That's like 200 hours of Messiah. It's just like,
So there
Crazy.
were 38 like contracted performances, but within those
Yeah.
each place, there were, 2 or 3 performances. Anyway, ridiculous amount of performances of Messiah. That being said, I have to say this one was definitely up there, if not my favorite one, because it was the closest I've ever gotten to almost one on a part singing this, which is so hard to do for this piece. This piece is so long, it's exhausting. You need stamina, you need endurance. But you also need to trust your voice part, and we picked 12 professional singers who also happen to be our friends and colleagues to join us in this, and we could trust them, we could relax, we could just let loose and just sing and have a good time. And that's what it was. It wasn't really work. It was more just a really wonderful experience with people we know and we love and we trust. And on top of that, it was over Thanksgiving weekend, and that was the first time I've ever spent Thanksgiving away from my family, some other people in the group too, and we all cooked for each other. We all got to just be together, and it was a very memorable experience that I know we'll never forget. It was great.
Yeah, it really is like a top Variant 6 memory. Just, and like especially right now in what we've been going through, it just feels like we're a world away, that we were all just staying in a big house together and cooking dinner together and drinking wine and singing Messiah. It's like, So thank you so much to all 6 of us, and I hope you enjoyed hearing some of those recordings from the vault. And we are now going to welcome back everyone.
Tutti.
Bob, Joan, Kyle.
Yay!
And turning it over to Daniel Schwartz.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. So Kyle, you've written a piece for Piffaro and Variant 6, I hear. Ave Mari Stella. Can you just take a minute and describe maybe the text and the structure of the piece? Anything we should know about the piece?
Well, it in one sense, it was a great chance for me to take this on and to write. In another sense, it was a really hard piece because it's 7 verses, and if you say, well, each verse is going to take 3 minutes or something, or I want to do all these things, it becomes a really huge, a hugely long piece. So I had to really tamp down and be very economical on what I was doing. At the same time, I wanted to use all you guys, and to use all your special gifts that you have, plus all of the instrumentarium of Piffaro. But I have to say, and I have to lead with this. If I don't say this, I'll just kick myself later. The real reason I wanted to write this is because Bob and Joan bought straight trumpets for Piffaro. Now, if people who are watching aren't Renaissance nerds like we all are, straight trumpets are, you've seen the movies where the king enters and the trumpets come up and they're like 6 or 8 feet long, and it's just a tube with a little, with a flare at the end, and sometimes they hang a flag from it. Well, that's a straight trumpet. Well,
will there be flags in this instance?
Well, that's above my pay grade. But when I heard these live, and I had never heard straight trumpets live, when I heard Greg and Eric playing these live in a concert back when we were doing concerts live, I was just blown away by the sound and by the possibilities. So the first thing I wanted to do was I've got to write some fanfares for these trumpets. And so I built the whole piece around these fanfares. So the biggest problem was, so I opened with a fanfare, and then I wanted to close with a fanfare, in the 7th one. So I opened with a fanfare, and I did this crazy thing which composers do. And I said, well, I'm going to write for the straight trumpets, not both in the same key, but I'm going to have one in one key and one in the other key. Because, I have a master's degree. And so, if you go to college, you think of things like this. So then I wrote like the best fanfare I could think of. And then I thought, oh no, I have to write something better for the last movement. And so the whole thing I was worried about was the fanfares and then fitting everything else. But I'm joking a little bit. But I was so inspired by having these top flight performers on the Renaissance instruments, these top flight singers, and 6 of them, and not a choir, but 6 soloists, and fitting that all together. So it was a greatly inspirational project. And then we didn't get to hear it, but we're going to hear it in October.
Yeah.
Well, that makes me.
It's aging like wine. We're going to uncork it when the time is right.
Yes.
That makes me even more excited to get into this. I have a 2-part question now that I'm going to ask together in case you want to bounce answers off of each other. So, Kyle, writing for Renaissance instruments and voices in a contemporary setting is a pretty niche style of composition. Can you tell us how you learned how to write for these forces and maybe a few things you need to keep in mind that you wouldn't otherwise need to think about when just writing for voices or modern instruments? And similarly, Bob and Joan, is your approach in tackling this music different than it is when you're learning your standard repertoire?
Well, maybe I'll just jump in and say something real quick. In writing Vespers, and it was 12, 13 years ago now, my intro to that, and Bob and Joan and I talked about what the piece would be, and we came up with Vespers, and that's a long story. But I had heard Piffaro play for a long time, and our oldest daughter Priscilla, who now for a while has played in Piffaro.
I've heard of her.
Yes, and then our family, we had a little medieval / Renaissance group called Quidditas. So I played a little bit percussion, a little bit recorder, and sang. And so the sound was very much ingrained in my head of the character, the precise character of each of these instruments. And what I learned early on was that for these instruments to work is that they each have a really unique character. And so they don't have the huge range that modern instruments have. They don't have the huge number of, all the chromatics that the modern instruments have. But what they do have is that they speak greatly characteristically. And what that means is that they have great personality. And for that to work, what I really discovered or decided was that you have to spin the instruments. They have to move all the time. If you just hit chords, you can say, "Ooh, I love that chord," and it's got that wacky sound, but it just doesn't work. They have to speak. They have to be always speaking all the time. So that's my answer for how to use the
Really
Renaissance instrument. So
never thought of that.
yeah. So Bob and Joan, I mean, you can speak to how that works because you guys actually have to, do it.
It's interesting what you just said about the letting them spin, and I think that has to do with how we consider our instruments as really vocal instruments. You're writing for voices, you're writing for our instruments, and we think of our instruments as voices. We try to phrase with voices, and I think that's what you love about our instruments is that, and the way we play them. I mean, not all the people who play these early instruments play that way, but this has been our style over the years, and something that we take great pride in, and we are renowned for this sense of a vocal way of playing. Bob, you want to maybe talk about how how we use these, how we feel about playing Kyle's music, and whether it's really a stretch for us or if it just is part of what we do in terms of our normal technique.
Yeah, well, to say absolutely, we have loved and are desperate to play Vespers again. When we first commissioned Vespers, we had a couple of pieces written for us, contemporary pieces, basically instrumental pieces. But we knew that the sounds of the instruments could be as contemporary as any modern instrument, and really wanted to say that, okay, these are early instruments, but they provide to the oral universe of contemporary sound something that's distinctive. And And so we approached Kyle and said, we'd like to do this, like to build this piece. And we share a kind of Lutheran background, so we came up with this idea that, what about a Vesper service? Well, how long is a Vesper service? It takes about a good hour or so, you know. So we launched into this major work together. And I think Joan's right, you know, from our very beginning, I think our own individual sensibilities were to be inclined to the voice and hearing vocal music. And then as we grew into this ensemble and learned what we needed to learn, because we had lots of learning to do when we first started, we realized that all early music is vocally conceived and vocal. Even the dance music, we think about text when we're playing dance music.
Mm.
What kind of story am I telling when I play this dance line, you know?
Mm.
And so that pretty much drives the way we think of ourselves and the way we try to phrase. So when we got this music from Kyle, yeah, it was new. The idiom was new to us. The sonorities were new to us, but we found in rehearsal we didn't have to change a thing. Our sense of tuning worked in the context of what he wrote. Our sense of phrasing carried us well into the piece as well. And I love your comment about keeping us moving, because that indeed was something that kept us working too. Is this flow, and that is very insightful, and I'm going to carry that with me, because it really had not thought of it quite that way. So it's thank you for that.
I didn't want to tell you before.
So when we had this opportunity to write for our beloved friends, who are in our ideas wonderful, absolutely wonderful singers, we thought an Ave Maris Stella, which has this long tradition from the chant. How many composers have treated Ave Maris Stella, and in how many ways? And wouldn't it be fabulous if Kyle treated Ave Maris Stella for you guys and for us, and see what the 20th, no, it was 21st century, wasn't it? Could produce.
Awesome.
And we're so excited about getting into it.
We
Even
are
though I
too.
don't play straight trumpet.
I got one last question for Variant 6. Can you talk a little bit about what it means to have a piece written by Kyle for us and Piffaro? And I'll kick things off by just giving a brief history of the first time I heard Kyle's music, and it'll kind of brings things full circle. I was in that recorder ensemble at Temple that I talked about earlier with my good friend Kile Smith, who said one day, "Hey, my dad wrote this piece for Piffaro and The Crossing, and you should come." And I was like, "Who is The Crossing? Never heard of them." And okay, I guess I'll go hear some dad music. And
Dad rock. Dad rock.
I showed up not really knowing what to expect, and this incredible sound just hit me. I mean, from the 24 Singers and from Piffaro, my jaw was just on the floor the entire time, and I was like, I gotta get into this. And since then, we've all been lucky to sing a bunch of Kyle's music in The Crossing. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Well, I think what's most exciting about this upcoming premiere for me is that while I have sung a lot of Kyle's music, it's always been as part of the alto section. And the piece that you've written for us, Kyle, is one on a part. This is something that defines Variant 6, is we sing one on a part music. So just getting Kyle's score and looking at the alto line and knowing that is my special gift. I hope I'm not spoiling anything, but there's a movement that's just SSA, and I think maybe tenor and bass saxophone or something like that, and then there's a TTB and other instruments movement as well. But I'm so looking forward to singing that lady trio with Jess and Rebecca.
I'll just say that Kyle has talked about, and we have talked about many times, that he gets to know and is very much informed by the people that he knows are going to be singing the piece when he's writing it. So knowing that the part is intended for me as an individual as opposed to a member of a section, the homogeneity of the section will be perhaps informative about what he thinks he can unlock in any one of our instruments. I think will be an interesting thing, and also just to find out what he is saying through that text. What's his connection to, what's his connection to that sacred text, and you will find that out just based on what I know of traversing through Kyle's music. Is you are informed about how he feels about and what his connection is to those texts.
And I was just going to say, I've had the pleasure to work with Piffaro many times in my life, and it's been an honor both as a guest soloist with them, in collaboration with the Folger Consort, or with the other ensemble I'm in, Trio Eos. So this is going to be a really awesome experience, for just being selfish for me, just because I've worked so much with Bob and Joan and other members of Piffaro. So a wonderful early music group combined with one of my favorite contemporary composers, and it's just going to be just a wonderful, joyous collaboration, and I'm so looking forward to it.
Yeah, there's that's exactly what I was going to say. Like, there's just so much about this collaboration that feels so serendipitous. Like, there's Kyle, the way that Kyle thinks about writing for voices, and the way that Piffaro themselves think of their instruments as voices, and something that Bob said really resonated with me, in that, like, he said it didn't feel contemporary at all, though it was very contemporary. And something, Bob, you also always say is that all music was once new music. And I think that is really in play in this collaboration, and there's just all these wonderful things coalescing in this collaboration. And so to answer your original question, Dan, I think it's just a huge honor for us as an organization to have Kyle and to have Bob and Joan and Piffaro. This is just, it feels like a huge culminating thing.
Yeah, totally. It's like heroes.
I was just gonna say really quickly too that when we got Kyle's score and we were supposed to do it in May, that seems like 5 years ago now. If you think about it, that was the very beginning of the pandemic, and I remember just being crushed, because I was in March, my brain was going well, by May we'll definitely be able to do the Piffaro concert. Everything will be back to normal, So it's this beautiful gem that we have that we've just been waiting for. And it just feels like it's going to be, it's just going to be such an amazing experience, because it was taken away from us at such a terrible time for performers, really. So
how much better.
It's just so much to hope for. So we know it's going to be awesome.
Anybody else before we wrap this up? All right. Well, we hope to see you at our concert where we perform this new piece, October 8th through the 10th, 2021. Check out our website for more information, variant6.com. That's SIX. Tonight's talk was free. However, we still have a lot of operating costs and have a full year of exciting concerts and commissions planned next year. So if you're able, please click on the link in the YouTube description to donate, or visit our website support page. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We leave you with a clip of Steht auf, an instrumental piece from Vespers, written by Kile Smith for Piffaro and The Crossing. Good night.
Stay healthy.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.